With 12-hour shifts, and the ones that are working these 12-hour shifts, we will compensate them for the 8 hours that they're working in that 28-day cycle.
And so would that have less impact on the budget as far as hiring new people and
Huge.
benefits and everything?
And when you talk about personnel, if we took the number of personnel we had and went to 8-hour shifts where we would eliminate any gap time or overtime in the sheriff's office, you would need about 16 additional personnel because you would lose manpower hours inside the facility. And to hire 16 more people, it's a lot more expensive, about $800,000 plus than the amount that we're paying for overtime and gap time.
Okay.
I'll stand before you. That's going to be, you're right. The mayor's right on this. It's up to the council. She's right on that. I take the ordinances of compensating employees for over the 160, and she's going to sit there and say the 171. Okay. I mean, I'm not a labor lawyer, I know that. But I know when that was probably put in, it was to make sure that our employees, not only in the sheriff's office, but the fire department, the police department, everywhere else was getting compensated, either at straight time or compensated at time and a half. You're not going to convince me otherwise. And to sit here, and I'm sure the mayor will get on this one more time, you don't have to compensate them up to 171. And I just have a hard time thinking that we went into an agreement in 1999, most likely, to go to 12-hour shifts to compensate the employees for that 8 hours, now to come back almost 20-something years, or whenever, how many years later, and say we're not going to compensate them. But you're right, that's going to be up to the council that has to make that decision. You've heard my argument for it, how we got there, and why I think that's how it came into place, why we've been paying for these 8 hours of cop time.
Okay, so we would have consistently our employees working overtime without getting paid?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
To the tune of 96 hours a year.
Okay. The city manager has a question.
Yes,
We have got to get our folks back. We've already had a work session on this with the lawyers and the labor lawyers who have told us that none of this that we're talking about is accurate. We're paying them for what they work, all of the hours they work, up to 171. And so let's get them back in, refresh everybody's memory related to that, so that we're not confusing the citizens about something that is well settled, not even a question.
I would say the citizens need to know, I truly do not think that salary is based on 171 hours.
Okay, that's fine. But we can put it down as another work session, refresh all of our memories,
Next one,
and then we can move on. Mr. City Manager, you had something?
Well, let me just say that and I know the city attorney can verify this, but every Justice Department visit since 2005, I sat through the exit interview with the Justice Department, with the Assistant City Attorney, every single visit with the Justice Department. I sat in, and I just wanted to make the point that I never, and I've got handwritten notes that I've saved, and I can go back and pull those handwritten notes. I don't recall any conversation about 8-hour shifts or 12-hour shifts or pay or gap time in any of those sessions. I took very detailed notes at every Justice Department exit interview, and asked questions. And one of the questions during one session was that they said that we needed more jailers, correctional officers, and they told us how many they thought we needed. And so what I asked the Justice Department officials, if I can get our city council to commit to hiring the number of jailers that you've said we need, then I would expect you to take that off your list in future visits. I don't want to talk about jailers. And they said, here's the number you need. And some of these counselors were here when I stood before you in the old building and told you what the Justice Department said that they needed. And I insisted that they take that conversation off the list in future visits. And we hired, and this is prior to the other local option sales tax, we hired 22 jailers, correctional officers, to satisfy the requirement, the personnel requirement for that jail, for the Justice Department. And my recollection tells me they wanted us to have, it had something to do with counselors or something, and I'll have to go back and look.
Mental health counselors.
Mental health. But we satisfied the need, Mr. City Attorney, and you will remember this conversation. And I said, I don't want to have any future conversations with you, Justice Department, about personnel. And we were done with that. And so I say that to make the point that then came the other local option sales tax. And we were at 1,300 in the jail when the Justice Department said that we didn't have enough personnel. 1,300. They were sleeping on what you all call boats at that time. The jail will bed 1,069, and we were dealing with 1,300. And so we moved forward, and we had no further discussion from that day with the Justice Department about the need for additional correctional officers in that jail. Then came the other local option sales tax, where we were going to add 600 beds to the jail. And we were going to need 26 or so correctional officers, 66 for the 300 beds. And so we've hired from other local option sales tax above and beyond what was required by the Justice Department if we added jailers after fiscal year 08. The record will reflect, because we had to respond in writing to the Justice Department after every visit. You can go back and pull the record, because we responded to them on this. And so I just wanted it to be clear that we fulfilled that requirement, and we were done with it. And so in the visits since that time, I've not had any conversation about the need for additional correctional officers or jailers. And so that's what I wanted you to hear.
All right.
We hired 22. We hired 2 in 06, 2 in 07, 2 in the July 1st, 2006 budget, 2 July 1, 2007 budget, 9 in fiscal year 07 at mid-year, because we were dealing with the Justice Department. 9 at mid-year, and then 9 in fiscal year 08 for a total of 22. And that should have, my notes will tell you, I pressed them to say that we will not have further conversation about jailers. And that's when we were done with them. And you know, Mr. City Attorney, I sat in on every single Justice Department visit to that jail when they came.
So let me ask you a question. So if, before we added those 26 officers, how many were there, roughly?
I can't tell you how many were there. I can
Could
tell
you
you.
do me a favor, can you go back, this is what I want to compare. If back then, you had to add 26 officers, let's say to, how many officers are there? I mean, let's say to the number there, and how many we have today?
Well, and that's a good question.
And that's
How
what I
many
want you to come back and
jailers
tell me.
did we have at that time?
And then we added the 26.
When I stressed to them that we would not, if you commit to taking it off the your list, in other words, we don't talk about that anymore, I believe I can convince council to hire these correctional officers, and I did.
Well, I want to know, I want you to bring back for me, I want to know how many officers were at that time, and then when you added the 26 that the state felt is sufficient to run with adding 600 beds. I want to know those numbers. Then I want to know what do we have today? What's the
no,
difference
no,
between
let me-
today and what the justice
Let
said?
me be clear. The Justice
Okay.
Department did not rule on needing 66 for 300 additional beds.
Okay,
It was the jail at that time with a capacity of approximately 1,300 when we had 1,069 beds, and they were sleeping on these boats. And what we needed to ensure the security of the inmates at that jail, they kept, every time they came, they talked about we were inadequately staffed.
I remember.
And I wanted to get that check that off the list, and that's what we did. And I feel sure that those who were on city council remember this conversation.
but that's why I'm telling you that, because I'm asking you, at that time, with that many beds, how many officers we had first before we added the 26 or the 66, whatever. Now, how many beds we have today, and how many officers do we have today?
Right.
That's what I
I'll
want
get staff
back to me.
I'll get staff to
because-
look at that.
Because what I want to see is, I want to see why we have officers working more if we have less in the jail, and we should have more officers.
Right.
Because I don't think we laid off all those officers when the population level, or whatever you want to call it, came down. I don't remember ever giving any officers any layoffs. So I want to know where those officers are, because that should have been a big number of officers compared to what it is today. It should be the same amount of officers.
Well, I'll have staff to
I just want to see
research and pull the numbers.
those numbers, because I want to see. Because if those numbers are that high, then what's the purpose of this? Now, if the numbers are less, then I can understand it.
Well, and I express that because I'm concerned if I hear the sheriff saying the Justice Department is now saying that you need more officers. If you add it after that deal was made with the Justice Department, and they're not, and you move them now, if there's an issue, then we need to go back to the record, because I know that we responded to every Justice Department recommendation in writing, and I know that the city attorney has to have the response to that issue to the Justice Department.
Yeah, let me say that I was in most of the early meetings when they agreed that this would be a sufficient number of jailers if you could get the funding.
Yes.
And then after you got the funding and council approved it, they were satisfied with the number.
Absolutely.
And after that, Ms. Sheftel attended other meetings, but at no time did they ever say, you've got to see that certain shifts are carried out this way, or you've got to see certain people are paid more than the salary rate for 171 hours.
Never.
All right, that's all the questions for now. Sheriff?
Yeah, I think really the bigger question would be, go back and look, we all need to look at the reports that the DOJ sent and find out when did we come into substantial compliance with staffing. That's really the question, is regardless if we ask for 20 or 200, is what they were saying. If they told us one thing, and then when they send the reports, they were saying we were not substantial compliance. So the first thing we should do is go back through all the DOJ reports and find out when did we come in substantial compliance. The second thing I would add to that is, I told you when it comes to staffing in county jails, the ratio is about 4 to 1. We are basically at 4 to 1 right now. If we went down in staffing, we would be over what you would recommend it, the 4 to 1 ratio. But it still comes back to, we would need to look at the reports from the DOJ and when they started saying we were in substantial compliance for staffing. You know, this one right here is, you guys, I'm sure you might have been looking at, well, we've been talking, all that. Basically, it shows that what we were paying in the sheriff's office for gap time and overtime in 2012 to where we're at in 2015, and then the comparison to the police department. And of course, how did we get there? The majority of that is what we're talking about, that gap time, that 8 hours that the employees are being paid for working in that 28-day cycle. Next one, Jim. But this is how it was addressed, to address the police department and their pay. As you can say, the pay reform and restructure plan allows CPT to compete for the qualified law enforcement personnel, retain experienced officer, ensure that salaries are equitable and commensurate with the duties performed by the officer. In addition, to establish a longevity pay increase for all sworn full-time officers. And I'm not going to continue to read it. You can read it. What you did is you increased the pay for the police department to compensate for that pay. We're talking about 161 to 171. You didn't expect them to work in their salary. You compensated them by increasing their pay, and that's what you did.
And we offered to do that for the sheriff's office, too.
No, ma'am.
Yes, we did.
No, ma'am. In fact, I was the one that came to you in a meeting and suggested when you came to, and everybody watching at home needs to remember this, and here in the council. A few years ago, you came to us and you made a couple of requests, and two of those requests was to cut down on the amount we were paying for gap time and overtime. One of the second areas was the amount that we were asking for education and training. I have not had an adversarial posture against the council or the city. What did we do? That first year after that was requested by the mayor, we cut it over 40%. So the people in this community need to know I have not taken an adversarial role and haven't made changes that have increased the savings within the sheriff's office. They need to know that. Bottom line, and we came and we did that study when Ms. Hodge was part of that. We came to the city and we came, how do you address some of the concerns? Because remember, the mayor came to me and she says, well, what I'm having an issue with is the fluctuation of the overtime and gap time. We need to be able to budget for that. So me and Commander Collins came up with a couple of solutions. One of the solutions was to cut down on the number of inmates we have, because we wouldn't need as many officers, and you wouldn't. If the population was 800 inmates, we would not need 256 people working in the county jail. That was one of the solutions, to get down to about a low number. The second one was to hire the additional 16 people that we were talking about earlier to handle the loss of hours we would lose if we went to 8 or 9 hour shifts. The first one we came up with is to compensate our employees. The ones that are working 160 hours, this is their salary. They would not get the overtime or the gap time. And then we would have a correctional officer 1 or a deputy 2, or however we would term it. This is their starting pay for those working 168 hours, and then we could budget every year. We know what our employees were making. Never got anywhere. Basically the same thing you did for the police department. Nobody came to me and said, hey, John, we can do this, but this is what it would require. I was the one that came up with that a few years ago with Commander Collins, and it never got anywhere. So no, I'll tell anybody no. Nobody came to me and said that we would do this for the Muskogee County Sheriff's Office employees.
Well, we can get that because it's public record. And we even mentioned it to your individual officers that came, the deputies that came and appeared here, Deputy Abney and some others, that if you had open positions and the gap time elimination, we'd be happy to work the same deal we did for the police department.
Mayor, I'm getting used to you do your spin on things, so I apologize. Normally I follow it pretty good. Whatever you said, I'm not sure. All I know is this. If you sit there and saying you were willing to sit down with us in the sheriff's office to do the same thing you did for the Columbus Police Department, I'm telling you right now, I have no problem, and I would welcome sitting down with you. But that's going to increase the budget of Muskogee County Sheriff's Office, and then what you're going to do is you're going to turn around and say you need to find cost efficiencies within your budget to overcome that cost increase that you're going to have. They're not in there. That's what we're here for, Mayor. Lack of funding, inadequate funding. You say management, mismanagement, whatever, I call it you're not funding us adequately. That's the bottom line. In my opinion, that's the bottom line.
Well, let's move on and finish this. I'm just going to say it's not helpful.
But no,
when you
ma'am.
talk about
But no, ma'am, nobody came to me.
Hold on. We came to you, but
No, you did
that's
not.
fine. Okay. And it's not helpful when you say it's about spin. It's also not helpful when you talk about not being adversarial. I mean,
Yes,
sue us.
ma'am.
You sued us. I mean,
Yes, ma'am.
so we're not in a good place. We're trying to get in a good place, and it'd be helpful, if you don't try to color and cast the questions that we have.
No,
Maybe
ma'am.
we can make some progress here.
And I'm not. That's the thing. I know I'm not. That's the best part about this. I know I'm not, because I told you, I'm willing to sit down and talk about, for the Muskogee County Sheriff's Office, the same thing you did. How is that being anything but willing to try to work this out?
Yeah, okay, well, we can
Thank
sit
you.
down and talk
Yes, ma'am.
about it, as we've offered to do before, and we certainly will, because this gap time does cause a lot of problems.
Yes, ma'am. Next one. And this is kind of what I was talking about earlier. How do we address that? We took $322,950,000 from the sheriff's office for the overtime. And then you also took the $458,000 to fund the rapid resolution. I am a big proponent of the rapid resolution. It helps. But I told you, to get that kind of savings, I said it earlier in this presentation, we need to be a lot lower than we are right now. You're not going to get that savings running over 1,000 people in the county jail. I told you that then. That doesn't change. And I told you then that I think it would, and I was just hoping that if we were in the low 900s, we might see those savings. I wasn't even sure then, but I know we have to be in the 900s, low 900s. So that's what we did. We took 450 and then the 300. So we're nearly, $780,000 from the sheriff's office budget, plus other areas. And then now I stand before you and you say, why are you over budget? Two examples right there. That's how we got to where we're at. You know, I'll say it again. We've done efficiencies within the sheriff's office. You know, I didn't say, like I told you, I gave you the example a few years ago when you asked to have that reduction 30%. I didn't sit there and say, we're going to continue to do business as we continue to do business. I did not do that. We cut it by 40%. And I do know where we're at right now, Mary. You're right on where we're at. Next one, Jeremy. So the shortfalls potentially in the 16 was over $1 million, how we projected it, just on the outside for the pharmaceuticals, the outside medical, the bailiffs, and the overtime pay. And we estimate that it's going to be the same thing in 17 based on the funding that we were getting and that we received in the 2017 budget. I do appreciate the opportunity. I'm sure there's. Well, thank you.
Time to go home.
One last thing, Sheriff.
The buzzer.
There was a request that we agreed on in FY, actually it was August of 2014, the Sheriff's Office hire an accounting professional to help with budgetary things. And if you could just address that.
Yes, ma'am.
That,
Wasn't needed.
okay. Wasn't needed to have an accounting
No,
professional?
I thought with the personnel that we get through the city finance department, at that time Lionel Haynes, to look at any efficiencies we could find, we would find it using that. I did not think we would need to do it with a person inside when we had it being delivered or afforded that through the city government.
Would you reconsider that, to have an accounting professional in your office to help you with some of these issues we've talked about?
That could be one of the things we talk about if we're going to sit down and talk about the addressing of the pay of the employees of the sheriff's office.
We're going to certainly talk, well, we're all going to have a meeting, but Counselor Henderson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I've been sitting here kind of quietly trying to digest. I appreciate your presentation. I've been listening a lot about how we got here, and I'll be honest with you, at this juncture, I mean, we're here. We're going to have to cover the overages. And I'm more concerned, I think, with where we're going as opposed to how we got here. I think if we're careful about plotting our course from here, we'll handle a lot of the things about how we got here. You guys, you and your men and women that work with you, you guys have a tough job and you do a good job. And council has a tough job, and I think they do a pretty good job too, particularly during the budget sessions. We deliberate hard and we deliberate fairly, and we listen to all the input we got. Matter of fact, last year I know we actually gave additional funds on top of what the administration's recommendation was for your office. After listening to you and you came and talked to us, and we got a clearer picture of exactly what some of those funds were being utilized for. What I would like to do, what I hope we can do is get focused back on pulling on the same end of the rope. I mean, I would love to see us work in a cooperative tandem to try to make sure we know where we're going, we can try to identify efficiencies. And to that end, you know, the mayor asked about the accounting professional. You did do a pretty good job, I think, when Lionel and the folks were working with you, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on in any department. In the departments that we send, like our auditor into, he finds efficiencies that they can do, that they're a little too close to the forest to see the trees sometimes. So what I'd like to suggest is that we help you by providing some resources that maybe you don't have, like a comptroller or somebody who can do some statistical analysis and try to look and look at some of cost trends and things of that nature, things that Mike understands, but they just whiz right over my head. And we've got the resources. I mean, we could either send John Redmond in there, or we could, and together do it, and he would report to you and your staff and to us at the same time. Or if John can't do it, we've got a contract with an outside accounting firm. Let them go and look for some efficiencies. And then I think what needs to happen is about once a quarter, have that same individual go back in there and report to you and report to us and try to identify trends. Because frankly, we can't take another body punch like this. I mean, and I'm not assigning blame. I don't even care at this point. I'm just more worried about we're all working for the same folks. We wear the same color T-shirt on this team, and we're all working for the taxpayers. And what I would love to see happen is for us to work cooperatively, council and the sheriff, and try to get somebody in there that can begin to take a look at those and identify if there are efficiencies, and if there are, what they are.
Yes, sir.
And so what I'm offering to you, and I would love to get your agreement today on, is let's do that. Let's send in either John Redmond, or if, I don't know what he's got on his plate right now, but if he can't do it, let's get Albright and Fortenberry. We're under contract with them. And then let's work out something once a quarter. Once they get that baseline, I think they'll be able to go in there and try to just take a look at what you guys are dealing with. And if nothing else, it kind of lets us know that, hey, there's a storm brewing, and this is what it's causing it, and this is when it's going to hit. I think it'd be a great management tool for you, and I think it would be a great forecasting system for council. Is that something that you would
Yes.
agree to?
Yes, sir.
Well, let's do that. Let's try to get John and just ask him if he's available, because I know he's got some transition
I would
on it.
prefer Albright Fortenberry to come.
All right, well, let's do that then. I mean, let's take a look and make sure we've got the funding that we can pay them. But we've certainly got one of two options, and I think they both would be, either would be a step in the right direction to try to help us avoid being back here again. You don't want that to happen, and we certainly don't either. And
Yes, sir.
I think if we partner together on that, it would work. And I really like the idea, I think, that Councilor Woodson was talking about. I don't know the legalities of it, but, you know, some of your vendors have put you guys in a bad spot, and there ought to be something that we can do internally for internal controls where we maybe take a look at restructuring the contracts, or if it's already in the contract, and enforcing it, helping you enforce it, and require them, if not year-round, certainly after mid-year, so that any time, and not just for the sheriff's department, but for the entire city government, anytime there's any kind of funds that are obligated, when there's some kind of confirmation of the order received that goes to you, comes to finance too.
Yes, sir.
And that way we can just, you know, we can do a little better job of trending and forecasting, I think, and in areas that are way over my head. I don't know if they're over yours, but it just seems like a prudent way to go forward. Because we can talk later, hopefully when everybody's calmer about how we got where we are. I'm really concerned about where we're going. I think you are too. So let's do that. Let's just see. We'll check with John. We'll check with Albright and Fortenberry. We'll weigh those options, and then we'll get back with you, and let's try
Yes,
to
sir.
get that done. Well, I appreciate it, Sheriff. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, we have Councilor Davis.
Well, I think it's obvious we got a problem. We got a management problem. I think everything that was said, done, shown tonight, you know, it's just still, we haven't accomplished anything. There's no solution on the table. It's just more of the same. And, you know, when you look at the last 8 years, you're talking about $10+ million in overages. And it somewhat reminds me of a football game where you got an offense and defense, you're at the 50-yard line, everybody just keeps running the same play over and over and over and over, not making any progress, not getting anywhere. And Sheriff, with all due respect, I've asked several times, I've tried to somewhat insinuate to help, of why can't you trim your operational budget and your expenses around the problem areas that you're having? Why can't you build your budget from right up front in the problem areas you're having? It used to be, many years ago, it used to be capital expenditures, capital replacement request. And now all of a sudden it's turned into the same issues over and over and over the last 3-4 years. Same areas. We're dealing with the same areas. You agree?
Yes, sir.
Same areas.
Somewhat. I'm going to disagree with you on some stuff, but
Well,
I'll let you finish.
I mean, you can disagree with me, but this is the facts and the numbers don't
And
lie.
I agree, and you're wrong on some of it, but I'll let you finish.
Well, look, the facts and the numbers and what we've had in the sessions, I've asked you when you came in here in the budget session last time, what could we expect in overages? And matter of fact, I based the budget, which I felt was adequate and enough allocated to support the sheriff's operation. I based that on where you were in trending your budget and the amount you had left over and what you told us that day. Do you remember what you told us, how much you had in invoices?
No, sir.
Well, you said right about 400,000. That's what we could expect. And we're beyond that now. But that's not neither here nor there. We've got a system of financial accounting between the sheriff's office and the finance department that we got to get together. We got to get it fixed. And the taxpayers, it's their money. It's their money, and we just got to get it fixed. And I think Councilor Henderson, I've said it before, that's what an audit's for. You know, there's a lot of stuff being said. Some of the stuff I see, this doesn't help me. The PowerPoint doesn't help me at all. There's nothing in there that gives me any substance that I can work from. And I'm not sure who to believe right now, to be honest with you. But what I can do is I can take all this information that's being said on both sides, all the parties, the auditor will pull all that together, and he'll go in and he'll look at the numbers and he'll make the recommendations. That's what we need to do. I said that before, and I still stand behind that. I think that's the right thing. But I would ask you now, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of with our internal auditor going into the sheriff's office?
I said Albright,
No, I said ours. Our internal auditor, John Redmond, and the forensics auditor, what are you afraid of?
I want somebody who is an impartial party as possible.
They
and I
are. They
think
work
that's
for us. They're independent.
No, sir, I think.
Look at the agreement and how they work.
Mr.
They're
Davis,
our IG,
I would prefer
Internal
Albright. Listen,
Inspector General.
in all
What do
all
you?
due respect, I have no problem with the auditor. I just would prefer Albright. So I don't have anything to hide. I don't know how to make that
Well-
any more clear than,
Well,
I have no problem with somebody coming in. I'm just asking for it to be Albright Fortenberry.
Well, we're trying to, the internal auditor works for the council. You're asking us to help you, right? We want to help you. We're trying to find a solution. That's why I said, the taxpayers are watching and they're just saying, why, you guys are just back and forth, same message. It's like a broken record.
I agree.
It's like a broken record. Well, they want solutions. That's what we put. The council put the internal auditor in place to do that. We have a forensics auditor too. And what they should do, and I'm going to be in favor of supporting it, is work alongside Albright and Fortenberry. They should work together. We don't need to be paying additional expense. Is anybody keeping track of the expenses that we've been paying on all this stuff lately? We want to pay more? We have those resources available, and they're there to help you. They're not there to harm you. They're not there to cause chaos and conflict. They're there to get to the truth and pull it all together. And that's how you do it. That's the only way we're going to get to a solution.
Yes, sir.
So we can work together. That's what I'm trying to do is to work with you.
Yes, sir. And like I said, Mr.
And
Davis,
I want to
have
believe
no problem with
somebody,
it.
and the only way to do it is just open the books and put it all out on the table.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Sheriff. I don't know if we need I don't know where we are because we still don't have any way to pay for it. I mean, it's 2.03 days out of reserve. That's going to take us under 60 days. I don't know. There's no option. And it's so disappointing just worked so hard with this recession and some of the balls that have bounced, not always in our favor. And we've really reformed a lot. It's been amazing. In fact, when we were talking to the bond folks today, they were amazed at our pension reform. And, I mean, it went on for an hour and 40 minutes. They were grilling us, trying to decide if this was a city worth investing in that they could recommend to their investors. And they talked about the tough reforms we did with health care. I mean, we had people in here, you guys remember, and so we've done so many good things, and this is just a blow. So, Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. According to what I've heard tonight, we don't have any other choice except to go into fund balance to pay the overages in the 5 areas that Ms. Hodges has described to us, and I'd make a motion that we do so.
But let's just say, we're not going into fund balance on the integrated fund. I just want to get the motion right, because I sure don't want to authorize
In
any
the
more.
areas that are needed.
Yeah, only on those 2 areas that are needed. Is that correct, Pam? Excuse
What
me?
is the total amount?
It's, yeah, like 15,000 for the state solicitor. Okay, how about the marshal? That would be, come out of, yeah. I think it's just those 3. I just want to call the motion right.
Well, let me clarify.
Yeah.
Are we waiting for the marshal to come back?
Yeah, that's.
Oh, I guess that's true.
That's right.
Okay,
We
so
can't do a
we're only
motion.
doing the other 2, is that correct?
Okay, yeah. Pam, so there's just 2 other than the marshal, because we're going to hold off waiting for him to come back. Yes, Councilor Henderson.
I don't know if I'm not trying to, not trying to, anyway, I wonder if we could delay this whole process.
Okay.
Just for right now, gives our deputy city manager and our finance director an opportunity to kind of, just dig through the weeds one more time and just see if we can find anything. If we could delay this maybe for just,
Okay.
until the next business meeting.
Yeah, okay. Councilor Allen's withdrawn the motion, and I think also just to see it in writing would be helpful.
Yeah. And who knows, maybe there's one more rabbit in the hat.
Maybe so.
Be a little.
All right. I think that concludes this item. I don't know if the city manager has anything further.
Can we get on the clerk's agenda?
Oh, my God.
Yeah, clerk's agenda. We've got Councilor Thomas.
I do have a request for the city manager. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you.
Mr. City Manager, it seems that we are about a year into the once-a-week garbage pickup, and if there's any issue that I've had citizens talk to me about, it's the once-a-week garbage pickup, whether they like it or don't like it or whatever. What I would like to request is that at our August work session, which is the last work session for this calendar year, that we have a report from Public Works, and that on the once-a-week garbage pickup program, how it's working, what some of the concerns are about that, what some of the things are that have happened that we did foresee, some of the things that it may have happened that we didn't foresee. I think one of the prime issues that brought all of this really was the Thursday Thanksgiving holiday and the Thursday, Friday, Christmas holiday, that schedule. And so I just would like to have a very comprehensive report from Public Works on how that has worked. I know that somebody said to me just in the last day or so that when they saw on the agenda the overage in the integrated waste fund, well, I thought the once-a-week garbage pickup was going to solve all that. Well, I tried to talk with them about that, but that's the kind of thing that I'm hearing. So that's the kind of thing that I would like to have from Public Works, is just a real thorough report on how we're doing on that.
We'll
And
do-
I would also say to you that I want to echo what you had said earlier about Public Works and the law enforcement and all the other folks that did such a terrific job during the storm and the pickup and the fallout from that and the continued work on that. I did not hear a single complaint, which is very unusual in something like that, that somebody's not upset about something, but I didn't hear a single one, and I heard an awful lot of, they were out there, they were working, they worked all day long, it was 100 degrees, all of those kinds of things. So I'm sure that you'll pass that along to them if they're not watching tonight, to hear this. But I do wanted to make sure that they knew that the citizens have reported, at least to me, how much they appreciate the effort that was made by Public Works during that time. Thank you.
All right, Counselor Huff.
Mr. City Manager, I'll call you later this week. This is for the public. There's been some concerns about things that are private property issues, and I just want to come by and meet with you for clarification. I was trying to explain to them there are only certain things we can do as far as notifying the owners and things of that nature.
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
I got a big one going on.
All right. I think we are to you, Madam Clerk. Oh, hold on,
Council.
I'm sorry, there you go.
Madam Mayor and members of council, on the clerk's agenda, items 1 through 6 are biographical sketches for individuals who are interested in our Columbus Aquatic Center. We also have a recommendation from Keep Columbus Beautiful Commission for a seat on our Keep Columbus Beautiful Commission. And also, Councilor Huff is nominating Mr. Joel Stensel for the Columbus Aquatic Commission. 7 and 8 are temporary street closing applications for events on August the 13th for the Olympic Triathlon, and then event in October for the Midtown Mingle. We have a resolution, excuse Mayor Pro Tem from
We've got a motion and a second for approval of the resolution excusing the Mayor Pro Tem from the July 26th meeting. All those in favor, please state aye.
minutes of various boards.
Second.
We've got a motion and second that the minutes of the Board of Tax Assessors, the Columbus Gulf Authority, and the Pension Fund trustees be approved. Was there a motion second? Okay.
Yes.
All those in favor, please state aye.
On a board appointments, Board of Family and Children Services, Ms. Tony Huff has resigned. We'll need a replacement for that seat. On a Civic Center Advisory Board, Councilor Woodson, have a nominee for Mr. Irvin Sejak?
No.
Okay. And as I mentioned, Councilor Huff is nominating Mr. Stensel for one of the new seats on the Aquatics Commission.
Okay.
And if any of the councilors would like to nominate any of the other
Yeah,
individuals.
looks like we've got a couple. Councilor Thomas.
I would like to nominate Rick Cravens.
Okay,
Do we have any females on the list? I don't have it with me.
we do not.
They're all males?
All those who have been nominated thus far have been males.
Well, it should be diverse.
Well-
Women like to swim too now.
We'll look and see, can we find you someone, a female?
Yeah, it'd be nice to find one woman at least. Let's be diverse.
Okay,
Okay. We've got Councilor Davis.
Nominate a position for the Aquatics Commission, Bobby Howard, Coach Bobby Howard.
okay.
Can we save one for what I want?
Okay. All right. That's all.
And on our Columbus Golf Course Authority, we, Councilor Woodson, we need to call for a vote. The two nominees are Stephanie Leor and Mr. Ricky Wright. Councilor Allen.
Ricky Wright.
Councilor Baker. Councilor Barnes. Councilor Davis. Councilor Garrett. Councilor Henderson. Councilor Huff. Councilor Thomas. and Counselor Woodson.
There.
Okay, Mr. Wright has 6, and can I get a motion for confirmation?
Second.
It's a motion and second for confirmation. All those in favor, please state aye.
On our Circle Commission,
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, Counselor.
I'm sorry, and I know that Councilor Barnes and Mayor Pro Tem were attempting to get a female on that authority. I think there's now all male, so, but there is a seat rolling off, and I know that Ms. Lair and I know of 2 other women who are interested, so I just put that bug out there. I had committed early to Mr. Wright, so I was.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Okay, and then we're on Circle, is that right?
yes, we are on Circle. Mr. Augusto's seat has been vacant for a long time, and we finally have someone who's interested. If I can get a counselor to please nominate Ms. Aaliyah T. Shorn.
Miss Leah.
Okay. I'll bring that back for confirmation at our next meeting. Community Development Advisory Council, Counselor Davis, Mr. Jack Hayes cannot succeed himself. Have a nominee yet? Okay. On our Hospital Authority, Mr. Ken Chong has resigned. Council will need to nominate 3 individuals from which the authority will select his replacement. On our Keep Columbus Beautiful Commission. Okay. And also, Ms. Carol Ridley has also resigned, and Counselor Allen will need a nominee from you on that. On our Tree Board, Ms. Glenda Culpepper has resigned. We'll need a replacement for this seat. Also on the Valley Partnership, Mr. Tyler Townsend has resigned. Council will need to nominate someone to succeed him. On the Youth Advisory Council, Counselor Allen is nominating Mr. Frank Davis. He can be confirmed.
Second.
Got a motion and second for confirmation of Mr. Davis. All those in favor, please state aye.
So, Council,
All right. Got a motion and second for the confirmation of Jan Dagano. All those in favor, please state aye. Okay.
that's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Okay, I believe that concludes our business. We have Counselor Baker.
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Mr. Cravens for one of the spots on the Aquatic Center.
Counselor Thomas has already.
Oh, it's already done?
nominated.
Okay, good. I'm sorry I missed that. I must have been asleep.
All right.
You gotta find me a female, right?
Our business being concluded, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please state aye. All right, we are adjourned. See you next time.
No.